So here we go. All right, this meeting.
Here we go.
This meeting is being recorded and will be available through our website and on YouTube.
Okay, and according to the governor, whichever one we want to follow. All right, so we have the minutes of April 13th. Are there any revisions or anything, questions, comments regarding the minutes? So if there's not, there's a motion, let me just, if you go down to the first page where it says Mike asked about the proposed Nasdaq study, if Nasdaq could analyze, it says how reality of their perception. So I think he meant analyze the reality of their projections, how they coincide with
That sounds plausible.
past projections. So we can just clean that up, no big deal. And then the next paragraph, just get rid of the question mark. So does someone want to make any other comments or anything? Someone want to make a motion?
So move.
That was Lynn
Yes.
I'll second.
and Michelle
Michelle.
seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, if we go across the screen, that might work. Do we know alphabetically? Alan Genovese, yes. To approve?
Jane Dutcher, yes.
Raina Dastu, yes.
Yes, sure.
Renee Kier, yes.
Steve Richter, yes.
Mike Naughton, yes.
Michelle Jeruso, yes.
Lynn Reynolds, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes.
And did we hear from Steve?
Yes,
Yes.
we did.
Okay,
All right, if you
Again,
heard
I'm-
from everybody else, now it's my turn. It's been this
Okay.
way my entire life. Yes.
all right. Just a quick disclaimer. It took me a while to get on because we had a thunderstorm come over. And so I'm hearing thunder again in the background here, getting closer. So if I get knocked out, Greg, do your thing and take over and proceed accordingly. Does the Finance, Transportation, Facilities Subcommittee, do you have any minutes you want to approve, Mike?
No, we don't.
Okay, and does any for the Education Subcommittee?
Not yet, no.
Okay, and then Transportation? All right, so we'll skip over all of that. When you're ready, you can do those at your own meetings or wait till this one again. We did reach out to Karen Leduc to answer some questions regarding the Nasdaq report. She is not able to join us, but Greg was able to get in touch with her and have a conversation with her and ask some of the questions that were raised through the Finance, Transportation, Facilities Subcommittee. So Mike, we asked a couple of those. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg for a minute to just share with you his conversation with her. And if you see a need, we will, invite her to a future meeting. We can get back to her. So by the way, I also see Mark Abrahams as part of this meeting. Jen Etchon has joined us, and Joanne Blyer. Welcome to all of you. They are also participating in this Zoom meeting. So I think we have everyone captured. Greg, you're on mute.
Yeah, I did have a chance to speak with her this morning. Unfortunately, she couldn't make the meeting, but I told her we would get back in touch with her after the meeting to see if we in fact need to have a meeting with her, which we may want to clear some things up. I don't really want to speak for Nasdaq. I can just tell you some of the questions that I asked and some of the answers that I got. So I did ask where the numbers come from. They do run their numbers by way of the October 1 numbers that come in from the districts. How they project out is, I think, is a little more complicated. She did say that this year she agreed there was an anomaly and that the projections are going to be a little wonky because of that, because of the drop in enrollment, especially in Gilmontague by 100. But we expect probably, I think Joanne said something like maybe half coming back. And they, or she said that Nasdaq, when something like this happens, they expect it to take 2 or 3 years for the enrollment to sort of settle again and stabilize. So
Right, could I ask, did she indicate that they had taken that into account in their projections, or did she just say, oh yeah, there was a wonky thing and that threw the projections off?
that's where I would like to have her. I would like to get more clarification on that. It
Okay.
sounded like, yeah, I don't want to speak for them, but it did sound like they took into account the trend that was happening before the pandemic, like through 2018, and tried to project forward with some taking into consideration that this was a year that was an anomaly. But the way they break it down, I think what she was trying to say is that it's a little more difficult to do that because they go when the study that they do a cohort survival rate ratio is how she put it, which breaks it down into groups of students, K through 5, pre-K through 1, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. And so each one of those is going to be different in terms of how that generates the overall numbers. But again, I'm no expert in this, so I'm merely relaying the information.
And I agree. It sounds like maybe either the subcommittee or the full committee should try to have at least one more session with her to go into a little more detail, because I'll just say, looking at the numbers, it kind of looked like there was a trend up through about FY19, and then all of a sudden the line dropped, and then there was another trend going from the lower point continuing on. And so
Yeah.
it kind of looked like almost like a modified step function, which, so I don't expect you to explain it. I'll just
Yeah,
say
I
that's
can't
what-
explain it.
that was my
It
perception.
does sound like that they were looking at, the trend line, but with this year being an anomaly and with the fact that it takes 2 or 3 years to recover from something like this, that there is going to be, the projections are going to look a little weird because you are going to continue with this sort of dip for the next 2 or 3 years as enrollment begins to build back up.
Right.
Again, yeah, I think it would be good to have her or someone from Nasdaq meet with either a subcommittee or with the whole, with the full board. I'm sorry, Karen, did you have a question?
To me, that'll be Alan's call. I'd like to have her meet with the subcommittee anyway.
Well, it may not be up to us. The question is, will they meet with us? I hope so. She seemed pretty amenable to it, but we'll see. Yeah, Karen, I'm sorry.
Being relatively new to the board, maybe I don't have my finger on how documents get to us or who's going to be sending them to us, but I only received enrollment for the Pioneer District.
I think that was, I think Mike sent something out. Mike, I meant to thank you on that one. I think as I was attaching things, it sounded like I attached the wrong documents. Is that correct?
No.
Link to the wrong documents, yes.
I linked to the wrong documents? Okay.
Yeah.
My apologies for that. I'm juggling a lot of documents all at once sometimes, and what I think is the right documents sometimes on the drive folder turn out not to be it. But did you, I think you sent out another email to all.
Yeah, maybe depending on what Karen's question is, we received 3 reports from Nasdaq, one for Gilmontague, one for Pioneer, and one for a combined district. And I did send out links to those 3 documents, which is what Greg had intended to send out, but no, had sent out. He sent out links to documents that we received from Pioneer, which were the October 1st, 2020 head counts. And I don't believe we have received October 1st head counts from Joanne. Although I think Joanne said at one of our subcommittee meetings that she thought she had sent them. I was looking through my stuff today and I didn't see anything. And,
Oh.
you know, we all make mistakes, so.
Well, I
maybe-
would
maybe
like
she
to
really
have
did, but
those. I would
I
like to
don't-
have those if possible.
Okay, well, there is everything that the FTF subcommittee has received.
Mhm.
If you go to the main STRPB website, and then there's a menu option for subcommittees. If you
Okay.
go there and click on FTF subcommittee, there's a link to FTF documents. And everything we have received is or should be on that page.
So
And I
should-
don't believe there's anything for Gil Montague 2020 October 1st head counts.
Okay.
Karen,
So I should check that website before meetings to make sure I have everything
well,
that I'm gonna
Karen,
need, right?
let me ask you something. Are you requesting the Nasdaq reports or are you requesting something different?
I was asking for the October 1st, 20 school enrollment numbers.
Okay, well,
We don't have-
that wasn't a part of the attachments. I meant to send out the Nasdaq reports, which had actually been sent out to, I believe, the full board earlier. And I was just trying to do that again in case somebody missed it.
Okay.
But as far as the 2020 enrollment, that wasn't actually on the agenda. So that's why no, it's not a part of it.
Okay.
We're going over the Nasdaq reports right now.
So I can see everybody's hand. Can I just ask so it's the Pioneer, Nasdaq, enrollment, the Gil Montague, and then a combined district. If you did not get those, could you just put your hand up for a minute so I can see if this was pervasive? I'm looking for hands and I see Karen,
I don't know.
Renee. Okay, well, no, I mean, in your email. Renee, did you get them? Was your hand up?
I have the Pioneer ones. That's all I have.
Okay,
Nasdaq
so only
report.
Pioneer. The Nasdaq reports. Okay, so it looks like Renee and Karen did not get 3 separate reports from Nasdaq about the enrollment.
And I mean, there were links to all 3 reports in the same email, so
Mm,
I'm having a little trouble understanding why someone got one but not the other 2.
No, I
I
just
think
got
people are
enrollment
confused.
numbers.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see it now. It's in Mike's below that. I have it.
You got it? Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm okay too.
Great.
and Jane, did you want to say something, Jane?
But just that I thought people were confused about which documents we were talking about. The
Right.
people were talking about enrollments
Yeah.
and NASDAQ, and 2 separate
Okay.
things. The enrollments from the districts are one thing, the
Right.
NASDAQ reports are another thing.
Correct.
Mhm.
And I think
Very
the
true.
lines got crossed there. I was
Okay,
trying to
so I think
uncross.
what I'll do is I'll table the rest of this for now and give you a chance to go and read, all 3. We'll put it back on the agenda at the point. And after you read it, read the 3. Mike, do you mind if they were to send, questions that they may have to you and you aggregate them so that we can send them on to Karen or to whoever at Nasdaq, and they could, kind of be more prepared to see what we're asking about? Would that be okay, Mike?
Yes, I don't mind. No, I don't mind. Yes, that would be okay.
Okay,
In fact, that
people
sounds
look
like
at
a good
it-
way of doing things.
I think Mark,
okay.
Mark, did you have something you wanted to say?
Just to clarify, 3 NASDAQ reports recently received, 1 on the combined 6-town, 1 on Pioneer Valley, 1 on Gil Montague. In addition, there's the October 1, 20 pupil enrollment report, 1 for Pioneer Valley, 1 for Gil Montague. I believe, Mike, those should be up on the Finance Committee's website or on that link.
What's the name of the Gilmontague one?
GM October 1 enrollment, I believe.
Thank you for that clarification, Mark.
Yeah, GM October 1, 2020 district enrollment, file date June 8.
Okay. Well, good. I stand corrected.
One other thing that was interesting. So we did have a chance to talk a little bit about what we were doing and how important it is from the state's point of view, which she encouraged us to continue to put pressure on the state for support. She doesn't think that they won't give us support because we really are the first two regions to be looking at forming a larger region. So the other thing though was Gilmontague, just something to think about, was the birth to kindergarten ratio in Gilmontague. Usually they line up. It's sort of, it's sort of your future students. But with Gilmontague, it didn't line up. There was a little more sort of variance in the numbers, and she was questioning what might be causing that. Both districts have some drop off from 8th to 9th grade, which is understandable with school choice and private schools and all the other options that
Tech
students have.
school.
Franklin County
Cool.
Tech School. Yeah. And but that was one of the question marks, was that, with the birth to kindergarten ratio, where were some of those students going from, that they weren't showing up in kindergarten. So just something to think about. Joanne, I don't know if you might be able to answer that or not, but maybe that's new news to you, or who knows.
No, I think a lot of student, we have a population in Montague that really moves a lot. And so a lot of families that might live here when their children are born may not still live here when they go to kindergarten. So, families with different age kids are moving into town. That's something it's different for Montague than it is for any of the other towns involved.
Yeah.
I also did
that makes sense.
Notice that the Nasdaq report shows Gilmontague just going down, 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 not like coming back in a few years. And I don't think that's what it's going to look like.
She said something to that effect too. She said, because of the way the numbers are generated with the anomaly, that you really need another year of numbers to sort of smooth that out, I think. So she did say that both districts, she expected that whether or not they stabilize means that they're going to go back to what the projections were before. She didn't clarify that. So whether or not we're going to see a slight rise in Gilmontague like they had projected earlier, I don't know. And I don't think she knows because of the pandemic and what the effect is, in the long run.
Well,
So,
not to get into a big discussion, but I do think it's important for at least the subcommittee to think about that and maybe discuss it with her a little bit, because obviously projections about coming enrollment have a huge effect on the budget side of things. And I agree that it's hard to know, but understanding why people are making certain assumptions and what those assumptions imply will be helpful for us. And I think Jane had her hand up.
absolutely.
I
Sorry,
did
Jane.
well, there's one chart in the Gilmontague Nasdaq report, additional data, that doesn't have any data in it. It says NA, which I presume means not available rather than not applicable.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we should I can reach out to her again after this meeting and try to set something up. My reasons for calling was just to see if she could make the meeting. So I wasn't really prepared to ask questions, but so we had sort of a short informal conversation. So
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate what you did get.
it sounds like you know, we should definitely try to set something up. So I'm fine with
Right.
that.
I mean, it's not up to you to be doing all the heavy lifting here, Greg, but I think, I mean, are we thinking that the full committee wants to meet with her though? I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
I would like to see the full board meet with her
Okay.
if she's okay
I
with
mean,
that.
I mean, that
answer the
sounds, that
Well,
sounds good
let
to
me
me.
do
I
it this,
mean,
let me do it this way. If you are, if you would like to have a meeting with the full board, could you raise your hand so I could just get an idea if this is something? Okay, there seems to be enough interest that, to reach out to her. Thank you.
Just have a question, Alan. Anyone from Pioneer look at the Bernardston enrollment? I think it was 143, and I heard through the grapevine that they're closer to 200.
are you talking the Nasdaq report?
Yeah. Oh, no,
Well,
yeah. Or was it
That's one of
Desi? It
the, I
might have
think
been
that's one of the
Desi.
questions. That's one of the questions is, their numbers are not the same as the numbers we got from Tanya,
Right.
even though they say they should be.
But
And,
60 off, that's a lot.
well, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly if they're using in-seat, October 1 report.
Right.
If you're using
They
those
might-
numbers.
Yeah, they might be October 1, but of what year?
Well, all the years are.
2020.
2020, yeah.
I don't know.
That's what we
Okay,
think.
Mike, there's one of your questions to write down. You got your first one. All right, so we'll put that
Nice
on
work,
another
Michelle.
agenda. Yeah. I'm going to take the liberty for a minute to, Mike, before we move to you and you give an update on the Finance Transportation Facilities Subcommittee. I'm going to just move up for a minute, under grant extension in the correspondence, item B, letter to Desi regarding financial impact on towns. A while ago, Mark had sent me a draft and kind of outlined and captured, what the overall impact and what that looked like going forward. And it was an unfavorable financial picture. And so I finally was able to get a draft together. Greg and I reviewed it and made some changes. And I did send it to Mark, or Greg sent it to Mark, I think this morning, either last night or this morning. So Mark, your eyes on that document are really critical. And I did the best I could to try to put it in the perspective of, we're reaching out to department sort of as a partner to have them give us advice, suggestions, what their thinking was. You've got it all laid out beautifully in the spreadsheet that was in that document. So I'm thinking that, they're going to, kind of validate and say, yes, this is, the third time that we have data that, really it's not out in theoretical. I mean, it's real data based on how they do their calculations. And so I think it's validated because you've done it 3 times and we're getting, similar results. So I'm thinking that they'll thank us for that and just say, this is an issue, and that really they can't do anything about it on their own. And they may say, we might want to share the letter with the representatives and so forth, and make them aware of it. And maybe what would come out of that is someone might push back to Desi and say, well, what would a change look like? I was very careful not to, send it to any legislators or anything, because I wanted them to have an opportunity to really think it through and tell us what their thoughts are and how we might proceed. So if you wouldn't mind, did you get a chance to quickly review it, Mark?
Yes, I did. I got it this morning or this afternoon. So for the benefit of the board, in our phase 1 study, the combined chapter 70 for the 6 towns was about $200,000 less than if Gil Montague and Pioneer remained separate. That figure grew in phase 2 report to about 500,000, And in the phase 3 report, looks like around 600 plus thousand. So it's the same issue, but the numbers are getting bigger, perhaps because of Student Opportunities Act. And the reason is because Pioneer Valley has so much more base aid over their foundation aid that any increase in foundation aid that Gil Montague would have received is absorbed in that excess. When we did the phase 1 report, there was an assumption that people at DESE would read the report. Same with phase 2. We work with Rob O'Donnell, Rob Hanna, who have been extraordinarily responsive and are extraordinarily good with these numbers. But perhaps it didn't go beyond them to people like Jay Sullivan or even higher to the commissioner. So the idea of the letter made a lot of sense to make sure that those people above Rob O'Donnell, above Rob Hanna, understand the issue. And I think the letter does that very well.
Are you okay with us forwarding it on to both Robs and Jay at this point, or do you have any other suggestions you want to talk?
No, I think
offline?
that would be the appropriate action.
Okay, so we'll get that out to them, and I guess I know who they are. We should be able to find their email.
Alan,
Okay, so that's,
can I make a quick
Yeah.
comment on that?
Yeah.
And not to be wet blanket, I encourage you to send a letter and we'll see what happens. But it occurs to me that I think that one of the reasons DESE has been pushing regionalization is that their argument is that districts would save money, that it would make education, basically cheaper or better. Existing money could be spent more effectively. And so trying to make an argument for them that in order to encourage regionalization, the state has to come up with additional money for one particular case may fly in the face of that justification for regionalization in the first place. So I just think we should be prepared for them to be not all that eager to push for additional funding for a process that they've been arguing all along will save money.
so we'll send a copy of the letter to everyone. But to your point, in crafting the letter, we actually avoided the thinking of, can you carve out, special funding or tweaking the formula? It actually asked, because we know that other districts may or may not be considering this. So the ask in the letter was basically, could they, would they start looking at modifying or writing, doing a new Chapter 70 funding initiative and looking at it from a statewide perspective. So I think we avoided, Greg, when we were doing that, trying to be special and treat us special, but put it in the context of the whole state. Mark, do you think that message was fairly clear?
Yeah, I think what we've got here is a situation that no one could project, that to encourage regionalization or further regionalization, I'm not saying it was assumed that you'd get equal to or greater than Chapter 70. But the way DESE numbers are projected, that's the reality. And so they may not know this. And that's the purpose of the letter.
Okay.
Alan,
Well, that clarifies it.
Alan, I would just add that, yeah, I mean, the financial piece is one part of it. How we have proposed to regionalize with keeping the two buildings open and separating out the middle school and high school. I mean, they could possibly come back and say, well, there's definitely efficiencies that could be gained by putting everyone in one building. So I think I'm not saying, that's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm just saying that they could possibly come back and propose different efficiencies that we haven't put on the table for more political reasons, which I think are valid. I think communities don't, and then our conversation would be, okay, well, you're going to tell a community to mothball a building. Now what? Now what happens there? So it's a conversation to get started with the state so that they realize the complexity of the issue. And that's the way I see it. That the financial piece is one, and yes, Chapter 70, I think, did not play out the way they probably envisioned it to. But on top of that, they may point to other things that we can then have a conversation with them about the complexity of the issue, because it's not just the finance and education, it's the whole political side too.
Yes. Good point. All right, Mike, so that's your lead in to give us an update on the your work with your subcommittee and with the Abrahams group.
Okay. And let me just make a quick breaking news announcement here. I actually, having looked, I don't see that I received the October 1st enrollments from Gilmontague beforehand, but Joanne did send them to me just now. So I will pass them along and put them on the webpage. I don't think they're there at the moment, but they will be within, let's say, within hours. Okay. And Joanne, thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Joanne.
As far as our subcommittee update, we have been meeting pretty regularly, basically once a week since the beginning of April. And we've been meeting with the Abrahams group. And I guess the basic update is things are in progress. We asked for a number of things. I was going over the list this afternoon before this meeting to kind of evaluate what had happened. And I think that it's fair to say, Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that all the things we asked for are in process. I don't think we've actually received anything completely that we asked for, but everything that we've asked for is being worked on. And we have a meeting scheduled with the Abrahams group for 2 weeks from today. And we're just proceeding at the pace that we're proceeding. I mean, it's really, they're kind of calling the shots as far as timing, because the work is the work and they're getting it done as fast as they can get it done. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, I have been able to attend many of those meetings, and Matt Abrahams and Mark have been, in my opinion, incredibly responsive in the participatory process of listening to the finance subcommittee, and really brainstorming together how this tool that they're developing could work best, and sharing ideas. And it's really been refreshing, and I have enjoyed listening to those meetings and how it's unfolding. So, I do want to commend the finance subcommittee, as well as Mark and his son, Matt. They're doing a great job. So I look forward to how that's going to eventually shake out, but they definitely are spending a lot of time trying to get it the way that the subcommittee has proposed. Work in progress. Does
Anybody
any
else?
of your subcommittee members want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they're all here. Anybody else want to say anything? Come on, Jane, you must have something to say.
Well, it's great to work with those two gentlemen, because quite often it feels like they read our minds pretty accurately as to what it is we're asking them for. And that's a real pleasure. I wish we were moving faster, but You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I feel like we're building Rome too here. It's challenging, and trying to keep things in perspective is hard too. I'd like to take a sheet of paper and just build my own district and hand it to you and say, here it is, there you go, now leave me alone. But I don't think I have the brain to do that. So it's enjoyable. It's a challenge, and the every week thing is, I'm glad we're skipping next week. Let's put it that way. Those Tuesdays roll around so fast.
I will second that, actually. It's been a lot of work, and I hope we can stick it out as long as we need to stick it out, but I am going to, moving ahead, I think we're going to need to slow down, at least in terms of our meetings a little bit, because every 2 weeks has been kind of brutal. We were working against the June 30th deadline.
Right.
That's no longer in play. And I think it may be time to take a breath and.
Well, depending on whether or not they give us an extension on that.
Well,
You know,
they do or they don't, but we'll see. Well, we can talk about it in 2 weeks.
yeah.
I would
Right.
just like,
And what-
I would just like to add, Mike, that I appreciate the work that Mark and Matt are doing. I've worked with Mark before, but not Matt. I am very impressed at his listening skills and trying to give the deliverables that we want so that we can use the spreadsheets in the future. So I really think that they've listened to what our expectations are. And also Tanya and Joanne have done an amazing job providing the data to Mark and Matt. So I've enjoyed what we've done. It's been a little hectic because this is a very hectic time of year in my position. But I think I'm hoping for positives at the end of all this. So looking forward to see what comes out.
And I'd like to second what Jane and you just said. I have been I've been impressed very much because the quantity and the complexity of what we've been asking has been rather extraordinary, and they have rolled it out very, very smoothly, and just working everything together with what we're trying to do is not an easy job. So I say kudos.
Mike, July when is your next meeting?
I believe it's July 13th, whatever 2 weeks from today.
Okay,
I'll just invite David in case David has anything to say.
yeah.
He is muted.
David,
Not
come out where, if you're muted if you have something to say. Where is, there he is.
Just makes the meetings longer. I was beginning to find my level with these repeated meetings, and so I'll do what it takes. Possibly reluctantly.
Well, I think they are gonna spread out a little more now that we're into summer. All right, so we'll wrap
And
that
I add
up
one, I'd like to add one comment. Had it not been for Zoom, we never would be where we are now. If we had to do all this in person, it wouldn't have happened. So I guess that means thank you, COVID.
Oh, geez.
Okay, we are being
Hey,
recorded. Thank
You
you.
can just thank Zoom, Jane. You don't have
every
to.
cloud has a silver lining.
Silver linings.
Mark?
Yeah, so thank you for your kind comments. We've enjoyed working with you. The bit about knowing how you think, remember, we've been with you for now our third go around. So we do have that understanding. But as we segue to the Education Committee update, one of the big areas for this tool is to understand what the Education Subcommittee is going to give us as the Finance Subcommittee so that the tool can accept that. So I'm very interested in not only the update, but as we move forward, what is the deliverable or deliverables coming out of the Education Subcommittee?
Mark, specifically, just for a minute, what specifically are you thinking that you would get that you could plug in that would help you on the financial side?
Well, what we've collectively developed is a design that has several what can be called modules. There's an enrollment module, a Chapter 70 module, an assessment module, a revenue module, a budget module that are going to be interactive, updated salary, combined schedule, updated fringe benefit, combined schedule, and the like. So as the Education Committee comes up with their programs, we collectively want to make sure that the tool can accept those programs coming in. We think it can, just conceptually, but we haven't really had any interface with the Education Subcommittee up to this point. So if the program, I'm just going to take, if you're going to create an advanced German class, the tool's got to be able to plug in 1 or 2 German teachers at X lane and step for it to get into the budget and get into the financials. That's just one minor example. And I'm sure there's many other examples we can talk about. But that's basically the interface that I see coming out of the Education Subcommittee, a la what programs, classes will the combined 6-town district be offering. Mike, you want to
So, Mark,
comment on that?
I have a question, Mark. So would your tool have, I'll call them placeholders, so that, that specifically you're getting information on, what English, what science and so forth, but sort of have a placeholder that would have a formula behind it, that if they introduce something new in the fall, as they meet with constituents or parents, would they have the flexibility then to put that into the tool, and it would then permeate the various fields? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Because that would be most helpful.
Yes. That's what we're thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, Alan, I think that's what Mark may have just described is the ability based on saying, well, we'd like to, let's say, expand the world languages in this direction, or expand music offerings in this direction, or whatever it might be, AP Calculus or something. There's going to be implications in terms of certainly staffing and possibly supplies that the Finance Subcommittee is expecting to get some sort of guidance on what those implications are. We don't, at this point, feel that we know if someone says, gee, I'd like to, have more science classes, what that translates to into staffing requirements or whatever. And if we can know those things, then the tool will be able to have those things added to it and generate the budget implications from there. I'd say that another aspect of that is we're sort of agnostic on the question of whether combining districts will mean retaining all existing staff. We're not assuming that it will, we're not assuming that it won't. We're assuming that's kind of beyond our scope. But on the assumption that it might, one implication of combining districts might be that there would be extra capacity in some form. And if we were to discover, let's say that we had, 2.3 FTE extra capacity in high school English, or 1.7 FTE capacity, extra capacity in high school science, what might that mean for program enhancements? That's another question that, the tool can tell us, here's the, additional FTE that you have available, given the existing staffing and what the assumed programming is. But it won't, we won't be able to say, well, okay, great, that means we can, add another biology class or add another writing class or whatever it might be. So I think
Right.
that's also involved with it.
Yeah, and right now that's out of our, you were right, that's out of our purview at the moment. So
That's-
I know the education subcommittee has been looking for, looking at surveys and how they're going to get information. So this is a good segue for Deb to give us a review on the education subcommittee update.
Hi, everybody. So we've been meeting not as regularly as you all have been, Finance Committee, but and we have been meeting mostly with Jay and his group. I'd say, I think we've met 3 times, I think. Help me out, team. 3 times, I think, since we all last got together. And also I met separately with Alan and Jay and the group to sort of remind them or prompt them of what we really wanted them to do, because initially we weren't, I think as a whole, we weren't very confident that they really understood what we were hoping for. Primarily, we've been looking for the group to create a survey for our constituents, to do a slideshow presentation that we, as a committee, along with the Finance Committee, it's Karen's good idea to try to combine them, to have meetings throughout the fall and winter to introduce the idea of regionalization. And we also wanted them to meet with administration and sort of get some big questions answered, along with recommending members of a task force to continue to explore what regionalization would look like. Did I miss anything? Anybody from my committee?
They also did a pilot for the of the presentation that they put together.
Right. I haven't gotten to that, but yes, so they did a presentation last week based upon names that we gave them, two different community presentations last Monday and on last Wednesday. Mondays was Gil Montague and Wednesdays was Pioneer, of their slideshow that they created, and asked them a series of questions based upon the questions that we as a subcommittee came up with to sort of gauge people's thoughts, sort of opinions about what regionalization would look like for them, for these sort of test group of constituents. And I went to the Gil Montague one. I think Renee was in the Gil Montague one, but then she left because there was, I think there was somebody else who was on it with me. I can't remember who was on it with me. But I don't know if Renee, you ended up going to Wednesday's meeting with Pioneer.
No, I just checked in and I knew we couldn't have more than 3, so I didn't.
There's only two. I think it was Bill. Bill and I were there on Monday. I don't know who was there on Wednesday. Karen went, and Raina went. Awesome.
And Steve.
And Steve went, great. Okay, so that's why you didn't go to that one. So that is what's happening. It's interesting, Mike, you talking about, and also Mark talking about what you sort of expect from us. I think we've approached this as sort of wanting to get information from the people who are going to be affected by the regionalization. And I think our tasks have been very much geared towards sort of, again, collecting information and having the consultants create tools for us to gather more information about how people, I don't want to say feel, because feelings are, you know, I'm not looking for feelings. I'm looking for sort of an understanding of what regionalization can look like and the rationale behind it, so people can have information so they can start to think about what regionalization would look like. So am I missing anything? So I love the idea of that interface of saying here, this is our vision. We'd like to have, you know, 3 science AP classes running at any given time. We'd like to have, you know, an honors biology class. So we want to have this kind of thing and this kind of thing. But I think we're not at that point where we can sort of imagine what the combined school with specific FTEs look like, because I think we haven't seen your stuff. So I think it's hard for us to work off of expectations of what the district could look like together. If you understand what I mean? Yeah,
Can
Karen.
I respond to that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's very hard for us to project what the costs will be unless we know what kind of classes. Not that it be, you know, pick any class you want to, but quantity wise, we're going to have 5 science classes at the high school level, or we're going to have 10 math classes. What, you know, I'm not choosing very good examples.
No, I totally get that.
If we don't know that, if we don't know some type of projection from you for the kinds of classes you want, I don't know how we can project a financial picture.
Right, and I think that that information is the consultants should be getting from the administration. And as far as I know, they haven't gleaned that information. They haven't shared it with us. Am I right, guys?
I don't think administration is working on that.
I'd like to say something at this point. I think we have to have information from the task force. They deal with curriculum and so forth. In the description the consultants have given to us of the people who will be involved in that. It's staff, it's curriculum coordinators. We still have very different philosophies about high school teaching that have not been addressed. You mentioned honors classes. Pioneer does not have honors classes.
I'm not going to go back and forth with you about that. I know that, Karen. And I'm sorry I used that as an example. I was just, you know, talking off the top of my head. I don't want to get in the weeds with you about this. My point is that the task force, which again is one of the things we recommended that the committee, the consultants recommend. And I think my memory is that they felt very strongly that it should be the teachers and not involve parents yet, that the teachers get together. That's my memory. Am I right?
And curriculum coordinator and so forth.
Yes, right, etc. But not parents on this task force. So we haven't gotten that piece yet. So I understand, Jane, your frustration, Jane. I totally get that. If that's frustration you're saying, I get that. But I don't think we've gotten all the things that we have asked for yet. And Alan and I have had lots of discussions about that. I think I feel that some of the things that we've we've asked for, we have not received. And we definitely, that meeting that Alan and I had with Jay to try to clarify the questions and the presentation that we asked for, they had to go back and start to really look at the minutes that we had back in April, because they weren't addressing what we had asked for. So I don't know if that slowed them down. They had to go back again and meet with administrators. They talked a lot about how busy the administration was because of COVID. I get that, but that doesn't mean that we still can't get the information that we need. So I know that they did go back. So I think our work has been, I don't want to say compromised, but it's certainly been complicated by what the consultants have been able to do or not do. That's my feeling. I will say that the community meetings, the community meeting that I went to, I was very happy with it. I think that we were only able to get a fraction of information from the participants, because I think some of them were reluctant to speak. We had only a handful of people there, I think maybe 6 or 7, and 3 or 4 spoke a lot, but they didn't address curriculum. None of those people who participated talked actively about what they want, what their vision is for regionalization. They were just starting to wrap their head around regionalization. They were way back here. So it would be next to impossible to try to superimpose what we want, we as a committee. I mean, I could do it, but it's not, my opinion it matters not at all. It has to be coming from our constituents about what they want. So I'm just saying that.
Well,
yes,
and I'm not looking for specific classes that you or the task force might recommend. I'm looking for numbers. Science department needs this many, math needs that many, English needs that many. This many are needed in the middle school for these subjects. We think that these specialties should be taught.
Right, and that would come
kind of
from the administration.
generalization.
Yes, no, I'm with you, Jane. I know the last time we met as a group, they hadn't collected that kind of information for us. They did talk at our last meeting, again, prior to the presentation, and they weren't even able to show us the presentation before the meeting until a couple of days before. So they had met again with administration and gotten more information, but they did not share that information with us. I think they were waiting for our next meeting, which I believe is in July. I think it's July 12th, but I might be wrong. Does that sound? Yeah.
That's a Monday. Is that when you meet?
Usually meet on Mondays at 5:30.
Yeah.
Can
That's
I
a
just
Monday.
jump in?
Yeah,
Can I
Mike, go
just-
ahead.
I'd like to just say,
Sure.
you know, Deb, I think we hear what you're saying, and I'm sensing a little defensiveness, which I think isn't necessary, because I don't.
I'm
think
not. I'm
anybody.
defensive
Well,
about.
can I just say that I nothing I think that anybody on our committee has said was meant to suggest that we want any of that stuff right away or next week or even within a month or 2 months. All we're saying is that when this tool is done, it's going to be a tool, but it's not going to be the final product produced by that tool, which is, among other things, a budget for a combined district. And in order to produce that final product, we're going to need more information. And so we were just interested in hearing that the Ed Subcommittee was working on a path that would lead to providing what was necessary for this tool to make that happen. And it sounds to me as if the answer is yes. But you
I
have
hope
had
so.
some challenges. And,
I hope so.
you know,
It
so I
does
don't-
feel
I
like
think
it's
that
out of our
we're
hands
okay.
a little
You know, I
bit.
think we're okay. It's just that we hadn't heard, you know, we've been meeting in our little group and you've been meeting in your group, and we haven't heard, you know, had a chance to talk together. And the issue has come up in our subcommittee to say, well, gee, I hope we're going to be able to get this information at some point. Now we're hearing that, yes, it will be available. And I think, Alan, maybe you want to jump in here.
No, well, I want to say,
Yeah,
I
I-
hope it's going to be available, but I can't guarantee that it is. Based upon our now experience with our consultant group, I think, again, they did a pretty good job last week with their presentations. I was pleased with what I saw on Monday. But prior to that, I was not pleased with where they were going because I didn't feel like they were really listening to what we were asking for.
Okay.
So if I could just add in, I agree with what you're saying, Deb, and I think when we had a meeting and we talked, I think it was a productive meeting because we sort of, meeting of the minds and got on the same page. I do want to say that I did get the feeling that they had been working on different planes of the topics that we were, interested in, but hadn't gotten down to the weeds of specifically what we were looking for. So I think they were, getting information that will be part of the big picture. And so, I didn't feel they, I felt they were moving along some of the levels that we're looking at, but not in the detail. And I think that got clarified. I know that Paul is here. I see he came in. I don't know, Paul, if you wanted to comment on that, because Deb's concern, as she was representing the full, the subcommittee, was, having the information in a way that we would be able to go forward in the fall, not probably summer. I think we need to step back and just take a breath but certainly in the fall to be able to take information that you have, whether it be, the tool or questions or whatever, and then start to glean more information that will eventually we'll be able to finalize we might be able to do big picture stuff that goes in the tool for now. And then it gets refined as we're having meetings with teachers in a curriculum. Deb, before Paul talks, I want to flip back to you because I think I jumped in ahead of you, and I want to make sure that you have a chance to really solidify your thinking, because I know there was concern to get back to the minutes of one of the April meetings you had, that you kind of really solidified what you were looking for. And, part of the document that and even in our minutes that we approved, that the expectation was that the consultants and the education subcommittee would talk about what needed to be gleaned. So do you want to jump in before I ask Paul to add some comments if he chooses?
No, I guess I just, I don't want to sound defensive because I think what the finance committee is doing, it sounds fantastic. I wish I felt like we were making as much progress as the finance committee sounds like it has. And it's not that Jay and his team aren't doing the work, but I don't think I felt like they really understood what we were looking for. Certainly not as far as that the slideshow presentation or the questions we wanted them to ask both the administration, the two different administrations, and also in the presentation itself. But I did feel again better after Monday. I'm sorry that it was such a small group of people on Monday, but the focus was kind of odd. What people were really focused on for regionalizations. I thought we had got very little information about how people feel about things academically. We get a lot of feelings about sports, which is disappointing, right? But that seems to have been that group's focus. Sports and some extracurricular, I guess, maybe band.
Yeah. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for joining.
So I think Deb is right. I think there was a little bit of confusion at the beginning. We were looking at the scope of services from, I think, a little different viewpoint than the committee was. So we did go back and had some long discussions about it. I think it's the April 12th minutes, Deb, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we did go back and then we tried to incorporate more of those. So I think we're on a better track. At least I hope we are. We did have 2 good meetings. We developed 3 PowerPoint presentations for the committee to use. We've looked at all 11 of the tasks that were in the scope of services, and we're in the process now of writing the final report to just kind of go back to some of the conversation that was preceding with Mike's committee. So I think in the last year when we were working kind of side by side with Mark and his son. So I think if we were to get some of the information that Jane was talking about, it might behoove us to sit down some afternoon with Mark and his group and see if we can maybe come up with some more information. So if you were to ask us if we would give a recommendation as to, what your courses would look like if you had 4 science teachers versus 5 science teachers, we could do that, but we haven't had that opportunity to talk to Mark. And so that might be something that we'd have to talk to you, Alan, and Greg about, to see if there's a opportunity for us to talk to Mark and see if we can, if you wanted to go a little deeper, we could probably do that, but we couldn't do it without talking to Mark. I don't know if Mark agrees with me or not, but that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, Paul, do you, are you gonna have in your report, because I don't know how you can be writing the final report yet, because it seems like we have a little more ground to cover, and you were gracious enough last year when we had our, June 30th to be able to, kind of wrap things up and make sure that, both parties were satisfied. So we will probably have to have a conversation with the Abrahams group and the Mars group as well to, obviously it can't go on forever. But are you thinking of having an addendum to your report that would have a survey for, the teachers, one for the parents, one, I guess you're putting together general questions as to, what various constituents would be asked, or suggested questions? Are you planning on doing that as addendums, or are you trying to embed that in the report? Because that was one of the outcomes, is to have surveys that we could glean information, however we were going to do that, whether it be paper or in a forum that we asked people to, give their comments. So I'd be interested in that.
So I guess I would respond to that by saying that I don't have it in front of me, but it was my understanding that it was a community survey. So I might be misunderstanding. So we have developed a community survey. We've worked with another consultant who's done surveys much throughout the state of Connecticut, and we've utilized her services, and she's helped us. So if you wanted to expand that, I don't see how it would be that difficult to expand that, but that might be a conversation you'd need to have with Jay and Steve. I could see us doing it. I don't think I think we're geared to getting this report to everybody prior to July 12th, I think you mentioned, Deb. So I'm hoping that the report would get in your hands before that time. And I'll certainly convey that to the other members. But Alan, if you wanted us to go and expand that survey, I think we could do it. I'm not sure that that's where we were headed. We were certainly headed to give something to the community. That's what we kind of used the other 2 nights for. We've gotten all of the notes back from both of those. I think Jay and Mac are looking at those notes, seeing if there's anything that we can glean from those notes that we can add back into the community survey. But if you wanted to include teachers, we certainly could do that. We have met with some teachers. I met with 3 teachers from Pioneer. We've met with all the superintendents. We've met, even though we weren't supposed to, I guess, we met with all of the elementary principals. We've met with the curriculum people. We met with SPED directors. So we've sort of covered a pretty broad-based group of people. Hopefully we've asked the right questions. So I think we've probably got some work to do. And I'm guessing that once we give a draft to Deb's committee, we'll probably be going back and sharpening that report up to make sure that we've hit all the bases.
Okay, I'm not on the education subcommittee, and I step back from that. So, I leave that up to you, Deb, to decide how you and your committee, want to, address what I raised. That's in your purview. Michelle, do you have your hand up? No, Greg does. and Mike does. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have my aerial view correct here. I'm going to try to be brief. Going back to our original first grant, Superintendent Sullivan created projections that had staffed a projected combined region. So we had numbers, and those were his numbers that he came up with. The second grant was to look at two different programs. So we had sort of a more robust program and a less robust program to compare. And now we're in the third phase, which is developing the tool, the financial tool, and gathering information from the Ed Committee that's reaching out to the community to specifically now say, okay, what's possible? So honors is possible. It may not be something that's at Pioneer right now, but maybe the community in their vision of what they want could possibly be a number of things. And so that's where we're at right now, is finding that information. And with the information that we get from the constituents, that can be plugged into the tool so that we can run scenarios to give them the financial impacts of what they wish to have included. So how those numbers play out are going to be determined by the surveys that you're handing out now to the community, and being able to say, okay, there's interest in this area, and that realistically will require X amount of teachers in that area. And that may mean that there's less teachers in that area, or maybe we come up again with a two-tier system of possibilities. Am I wrong? I'm going to stop there, but that seems to be the way I understood what we're doing here. So I think what Paul's saying is that they were being charged with creating these surveys so that we could be reaching out to the communities, as well as having them sort of shepherd us through it. And getting the extension will allow us more time to get better information from the community. So it's not something that we can just get, especially during the summer. Your parents and your teachers are going to be much more engaged in the fall and be thinking about education in that way. So that's just the way I see it. I'll stop there. Is that Mark, Paul, does that sound like the aerial view that you have?
Paul, you want to start?
Okay, I'll just say that I think Greg has got it right. We did sort of a minimum staffing group last time in the last report, and I think we did a robust group. And so if we were to take a look at today, we would probably go back to that report and then talk to Mark about what that report looks like today versus what it looked like a year or two ago. I don't know if you agree with that, Mark, or not.
Well, so the base is there. So what Paul's referring to is what we call Program 1 and Program 2 in the Phase 2 report. So let's just make this simple. The tool should be flexible enough to have a regional high school budget, a regional middle school budget, and the elementaries will be in a third budget. So if you wanted to change, add, delete, modify staffing, the tool will be able to accept that. And the finance subcommittee will be able to select a salary from the combined salary scale, and with that, fringe benefits. So I think conceptually, Matt and I and the finance subcommittee are there. And I think realistically, the educational programming might not be, call it a deliverable, for several months out. So I think what we can do collectively is, when the tool is ready, is just to test it based on certain assumptions to make sure that the tool is working and is ready whenever the educational programs, however they're delivered, are finalized for this phase, whenever that is. Mike, is that fair to say?
Yes, that sounds good to me. It kind of, I think my comment is basically going to back that up and say that, and also kind of back up what Greg was talking about a little bit, because one of my concepts of how this tool can be used is going back to the second report. There was the program 1 and the program 2. Program 1 was the more trimmed down budget. Program 2 was the more robust budget. There were a number of charts that described each of those programs. They were all in a PDF file. We didn't get a lot of
Yes.
backup for those PDF files that linked all that information together in a way that made it easy to analyze. And one of my conceptions of the tool is that that's one of the things the tool would be able to do. And what I'm hoping is that one of the things will come out of this process is a new version of the trimmed down budget for reference only. I don't think any of us assumes that that's the budget we want, but it's kind of a baseline to say we're not going to spend any less than this, whatever we do. And, you know, and we probably won't like what we get if we only spend this. So, you know, but to see what that, you know, how it all links up, how the staffing links to the costs and all that stuff and the benefits and all that. And then say, okay, and you know, one of my concepts, you know, is then to say, okay, and then let's take another, call it program 2A or whatever, and say, well, let's take a more robust program that assumes that we keep all the existing staff, just as an assumption. Again, as Alan says, that's not a given, but it has been something that's been discussed. And I think that having an answer for what would that look like is a useful result of this process, so that we can say, okay, if we kept the existing staff, we could do more than that trimmed down budget because we're going to have more people that it would take to provide that trimmed down program. But what can those people do? What are their areas of expertise based on what they're doing now? And what does that imply in terms of the types of programming that we could have if there were no changes? And then there's, you know, let's call it program 3 at this point, would be, okay, community, what would you like to see? Okay, forget who we have, forget what we're doing. What, you know, if you could have what you wanted, what would that look like? And what would it involve? And that way we could have some actual things to talk about in terms of saying, well, okay, if it's this, then this is a financial indication, you know, to the extent that we can, well, there's going to be a whole question of how confident we are about our financial projections, but that's going to be for another day. But, you know, whatever confidence we have, here's what those things show for the different programs. And, you know, that's my vision of how this is all going to play out. So I think the idea of the consultants for the Ed Subcommittee and the TAG group working together to figure out how to provide all that information sounds like a great idea to me. And I leave it up to them as to how to make that happen.
Okay, so that will be with the Education Subcommittee. Let's do one more and then let's move to Joanne. I appreciate you joining us and your patience to go over
I
transportation.
wanted just to say to Paul, in terms of the community survey, I think we had talked, Paul, for the survey, we wanted a survey specifically for parents, a survey specifically for teachers and staff, and a survey, sort of a general survey for people who aren't either of those two things. Am I right, team? Does that sound familiar? Thanks, Karen. I got a nod. Raina. Okay, Steve, thank you.
Yeah. Sounds like everyone's on board. So one of the conversations we can have later is that, you know, we're coming into the summer months. If we get an extension, do we put things on pause to, you know, for a bit, take a little bit of a break, and then, you know, and And I'll talk to, we can talk to Jay, Paul and so forth to see, if they test some of these things in the fall, are they amenable to that? Or, so that's a different conversation for another meeting. So we'll have to have, that conversation. Michelle, you can be the last one. I think your hand was up, correct?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering how, and this probably is direct to Deb or Paul, how are you engaging the community? I mean, it's one thing to come up with a survey and try to get it out there, but as far as like engaging people, because this is disappointing to hear that people just want to discuss sports and not academics, because if people are into academics and they're already thinking of sending their children to the charter school, you're never going to capture them back.
I'm with you.
Just
So
it.
again, we just had those 2 community meetings, and they were a trial community. They were a test run for this presentation, and they asked people in the subcommittee to find people who might be able to come to these meetings. And I think Gil Montague, I think maybe we had 7. I think we tried to have it to be equitable, but I think only 6 or 7 showed up for Monday's meeting. I don't know how many people showed up for Wednesday's meeting.
8.
8. Okay, thanks, Karen. So, so the goal is to take that presentation, because it's a simple presentation, and to have subcommittee members along with the finance committee members, because the plan is to add to this presentation with some financial information to it, and be able to present to larger meetings. I know that one of the people I invited to come to this meeting, she is the chair of the PTO, and she was pretty activated about the fact that we didn't invite a lot of people. She wanted this meeting to be everywhere, and I was like, oh no, this is just a small presentation, a small group of people, and so that we can see what it looks like. The presentation, basically, we meaning us, the people who showed up for it, and to get a little bit of a flavor from the people. And so I shouldn't have sounded so, I was a little defeated that the talk was a lot about sports. But again, it was an hour-and-a-half presentation. Some people didn't speak at all, and it was really the first time many of them had heard about the regionalization. So I would hope that we would be able to have these meetings on a regular basis and make it available to anyone who might want to come. I assume doing it through Zoom and having people be there to be able to listen and maybe have a survey at the end, so that it's not so much, oh, I have this opinion about this thing, or I have this opinion about this thing. And see the presentation, maybe fill out a short survey at the end, and maybe even get some feedback. But I think we invite a lot of people, we are going to be overwhelmed by the feedback, and it'll become very hard. And the back and forth could be very hard. But I will say on Monday's meeting, and I'll say this really briefly, people were excited. The Gil Montague group was overall very enthusiastic, and I think you'd agree, Paul. Some of them were like, why can't this happen yesterday? They had come in, a couple of them kind of reluctantly, but they all shared their stories of sending one kid to Pioneer, keeping one kid at Gil Montague. Just the frustration, I think, of the shrinking population was very evidence on Monday. But so that's the plan, is to have these meetings, and we're gonna have to talk about what that's gonna look like for sure. So sorry.
Can I just clarify one thing, just because Deb had asked this. So I went and found the survey. There are 9 categories of people that the survey responds to. So student, graduate, parent, citizen, teacher, support staff, community leader, community politician, whatever you want to call it. And I think non-parent or something like that. So there's 9 categories, and the questions can be answered without changing them, they can be answered by the 9 categories, the way I look at it. So when we show you that, we're certainly going to ask you, you want to look better at it, you want us to change it, but it is designed to get a broad-based group of people once it goes out into a Survey Monkey form, and then it can be responded to. And obviously we ask, what town do you live in? And it could be, I don't live in any one of those towns, but I'm a graduate of Pioneer, something like that. So.
All right, Karen, you're the last one. You're waving at me. I think you want to talk.
Yeah, I think you should hear that the meeting on Wednesday night, we didn't hear anything about sports, if I'm remembering that correctly. There was a diverse array of questions that had everything to do with curriculum, where kids would go to school, when this would happen, and so forth and so on. And in that respect, I was very pleased. But just like the meeting Monday, we had maybe 3 people who did the majority of the speaking. And one was the woman from Northfield, and one was a guy from Leiden, and I'm forgetting a third one who spoke quite a bit, but there was some hesitancy expressed among the people in our forum. They were not all in, why didn't this happen before, as you described. So I think it would be interesting to have, we have to debrief this, certainly, as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Alan, just a quick.
Joanne. Oh,
sorry.
yes.
Deb, thank you for clarifying the meeting type, that it was a test run, because I did run into Jane Oakes at the annual town meeting, and she was asking about why it wasn't a public meeting, and I didn't know at the time, as I hadn't seen, but so if you can pass that along to school committees on both districts, that was a test run, that was not really an open community meeting, that would be great. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Good point. Joanne, for the transportation update, hi, good to see you. I hope you had a nice restful vacation.
I did. Yes.
Welcome back.
Thanks. So I reached out to Pam and TransFinder yesterday, and I didn't hear back, so I sent another quick email, and the person that Pam has been working from TransFinder said that Pam had an emergency, and so she wasn't able to meet yesterday, but they're very close to having this product done. He said, for the sense of the numbers, it looks like the high school would require 11 vehicles, and the middle school would require about 10 or 11. So that's an increase in the number of buses we would need for this. If we could adjust the start times, we could bring that number down. So right now, some of the bus times are 60 minutes. So it wouldn't really make a big difference unless we went to 80 or 90 minutes on the bus, and then we would be able to make a bigger difference in the numbers. And that's a long time.
Yeah. All right, thank you. When you said it's an increase, did you have a number of increase of like 2 buses, 3 buses, 4 buses? What?
I can't remember how many buses Pioneer has right now. Okay. So I think we have 11 and we have 6. So that would be from 17 to 20 or 21.
Okay.
It would go.
I remember 19 from the last report.
Okay. All right, so we'll touch bases, and maybe they can would it be you presenting, Joanne, or would it be someone from
I think it would be
this
Pam.
person? Okay, Pam. All right. So you let us know when she's ready, and have her do it as it's coming along. I know she's got a lot of other stuff going on. I don't think there's a huge rush on this, but whenever that can happen. So
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty soon.
You want that before the full committee or the subcommittee?
Subcommittee.
Yeah.
Is that the subcommittee, right? Okay.
Okay, the PR, there was, I was not around, I was in Kentucky, but I did get a call saying that there was an article in the Reporter. I think, Greg, you sent it along. It seemed to have, I got a couple calls saying that it really was a good update and provided, some background as to where we were and what to expect. So, I think, one of the things that came out of that would be that, we're looking, we were slowed down by the pandemic, but we're looking at starting to share things more specifically at a global level in the fall. So, so that's all I wanted to say on the PR part. Is anyone else want to comment on that, or we good?
I've run into people in that because of that article who are like, oh, it's happening. So it's things in the paper. It's very powerful. And when from Gil Montague, we really should be targeting the Montague reporter, I think. Yeah, so we haven't done that, Alan, as far as I know, but that article or that press release that we wrote together should really go over to Montague, because a lot of people read that paper. So I don't know if you can send it over to them.
I can send it over to Mike Jackson.
That would be
Great
good.
suggestion. Yeah, great suggestion, Deb. And then we did write a letter to the state for the extension. I did get a reply back saying that, they're taking everything under consideration and, would look at that along with other things that came up. So other than the courteous, formal response, they did receive it, they did review it, and they let us know that. That's where that stood.
Alan, this is Karen, Alan. I was wondering why your letter to the legislators did not include Paul Mark, who represents 3 of the towns in the district.
That was my mistake. I should have sent it to Paul. It's fine. The momentum is behind it already, so I'm not that concerned about it, but I can send it to Paul.
Please do. He's been a good advocate for us.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
All right, so duly noted, thank you. And then future meetings, I wanted to at least get a feeling on what people wanted to do. Someone had mentioned that, it probably would have been really hard to do what we're doing if we weren't doing it in Zoom. And my personal preference is we continue, but let me put it this way, if someone wants to make a case as to why we should meet in person or start having hybrid, you have the floor. Raise your hand and we can talk about it. All right. It sounds like we're zooming along.
We're happy with this.
Hey, Alan, I think I'm not sure how many full board meetings we're going to have this summer. Probably not a lot. We're going to slow down and wait for the consultants to finish up with what they're doing. But I think by the fall, as we move, back when schools are coming back in session, I think it would be wise to go back into in-person meetings.
So
I'll say that I will never be able to come to a meeting if I don't do it through Zoom, because I work and live down in East Hampton during the week. So there's just no way. So I'll have to resign.
Well, no, it doesn't necessarily have to. It can be hybrid.
It can be hybrid. Yeah.
Hybrid. That's what I meant with more hybrid.
Yeah. I mean, and we don't need a quorum anymore. I guess David has been reading up on this quite a bit. So we can have some people that can make it in the room, and we can have others participate remotely. So I'm not really concerned about that, but certainly it's been really helpful with the consultants who would have been in their car most of their time to have the kind of meetings that we've been having continually. So
right. Just
David,
clarify,
you went off mute. Did you want to comment, David?
Well, we still have quorum, but we can meet it in a new way, not the old way, which was in the
Right.
room.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we have a simple majority as a quorum.
Okay. Speaking of which, we need, now, so we're missing a Warwick representative, right? And who else we missing?
Montague.
I think you're still missing a Bernardston rep, although I know we've given a name to the town moderator, and I don't know what has happened with that. Do you know, Renee?
I think she said she did get a call, but then she didn't, from him, the moderator, but then the next step was not clear to her, as far as I know.
We would just have to get sworn in.
Sworn
And what
in.
about Montague? Aren't we short one in Montague?
Yes.
Yes, we are, school committee member. And we'll see that we had 2 open seats for the school committee this past election and 0 candidates on the ballot.
Oh,
And I know one person was a write-in candidate and successfully. I don't know more than that.
Wow.
I think the plan is if they're the write-in candidate, I think is a go. I think just talking with Jane about it, they may have to appoint.
I've done that in the past, but my point being that there's not a rush in Montague, among Montague residents to serve on the school committee.
Sometimes I don't think we publicize that need enough at the right time.
Over there under the table. Ooh.
So are people, other than the
Good observation.
subcommittees,
I don't think we successfully show how much fun it is. I think that's.
You mean we need to?
other than the subcommittee, it sounds like they have a meeting scheduled in July. Do you want to, the full planning board not meet in July at all? And maybe look toward the end of August, maybe the, like the 24th, Tuesday, the 24th, is Tuesday a decent day?
Where'd you get him?
How about September?
why are we
Um,
switching day of week?
Well, this is Tuesday, isn't it? No, this is Wednesday. Oh, sorry. Wednesday, the 25th, or I don't know when school starts, or Wednesday, the 1st, September 1st. Yuck.
Hey, I'm going with this is Tuesday. I'm sticking to it.
It's Tuesday. We usually do meet on Tuesday, the full committee. And I prefer the 24th. I don't want to wait till September.
Mark has his hand up.
Okay,
Would that
all right.
mean deferring the Nasdaq presentation until late August or September?
I think if we could set something up, maybe we could start with the finance committee and see if she can meet with at one of your meetings
That would be great.
and start there. And maybe all the questions can be answered in that meeting.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
Mike could give us an update.
Unless everybody really wants to, I mean, I will sit in on that meeting. And why don't we just make it open if people want to come to it? I mean, it's an open meeting. So
It's a
just
public
let
meeting.
everybody know, and then you can come and ask questions if you want. Does that work for you, Mike?
That works for me. Do you want to contact her and kind of make the initial overture? She
Yeah,
can,
I'll give her a
we'll give her
call.
my contact information or something, so
Yeah, no,
I don't contact her cold.
Yeah, I'll give her a call.
That sounds good. And I'll
Our
just
next
wait to hear from her.
Our next meeting is the 12th, if she is available.
13th, I think.
Oh, 13th, excuse me.
Right. Okay, we'll see, because we're also, we're hoping to hear a bunch of stuff from the Abrahams group on that day as well. So
Well,
Oh,
doesn't
then
mean
you get
we
another
can hear
couple
from
weeks.
both.
do you see a
Okay,
pressing need
okay.
for that? To have a meeting? Could she just answer the questions? It's not going to change the report. Could she answer the questions in August?
I need input.
You know, the other thing we could do is send her the questions, Mike, get the questions together, send them to her, ask her, you know, to respond. And then if there has to be a follow-up, then we invite. Mark, were you starting to say something?
Yeah, enrollment assumptions going forward is something we have to agree to. The Nasdaq is showing declines in both regions separately and in the combined 6-town region. And so the question is, do we rely on the Nasdaq declining enrollment, now knowing that they're saying that because of the pandemic, it's an anomaly? Why didn't they say that right up front? And we could have made a decision not to bring them on. So at any rate, we have to make certain assumptions on enrollment. The earlier we have the questions answered, I think the better, from my perspective.
And I think at this point, it's better that we be able to ask our questions in person and maybe get the answers immediately.
The answer to one
Going
question
back
might
and forth
prompt
at
another
this
question.
point is not my choice.
Right.
I really think that a look ahead on this subject would be in order, just recognizing some pretty massive shifts that I think may be permanent. I mean, just in terms of home sales, we're seeing something that could result in a radical change in the character of our communities.
Yeah.
Leiden too.
Yeah.
I don't know if, I mean, people are coming to my town fully cognizant of the fact we're trying to reopen our own school, and some are we may have this one special case going because some people are affirmatively locating here in the expectation, or coming in here eyes wide open and knowing that their option may need to be private school. I don't know what all they're thinking, but it seems like we ought to be assessing this and figuring out what it means. I think there's going to be a component of distance learning more and more. I've been like a broken record on it on Pioneer, but the pandemic forced it on. I'm seeing, as manager of work broadband, more than half again as much traffic, and at totally different times of the day. It's not 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock anymore. It's all day long, Monday through Friday. All this stuff's going to contribute, and I don't know how much the past is going to be predictive.
Well, I think that's a good question. And I noticed that the additional data page in the Nasdaq report has a chart for building permits issued, which
is not accurate.
Right, but it indicates that they think it's significant. So especially if it's not accurate, I agree with Jane. I think it would be good to meet with them in person. Partly because if you ask one question, get an answer, that sometimes prompts another question.
Exactly.
And if let's just say that Greg, if you want to reach out to, is it Karen?
Yes.
And just put her in touch with me. I will work with her, and if it turns out to be the 13th, I will work with the TAG group. I should say that, I mean, one of the reasons I avoided management in my work career is that I'm not great at this sort of thing. And I did not thank my subcommittee and the consultants enough for all the work that they've done over the last 3 months, because it's been a pretty grueling experience and everybody has hung in there. I really don't want to suggest that we meet even briefly every week during July.
So Mike,
but
Mike,
we'll
do
see.
you want
Let's
to
see if we
consider
can get
having it
everything
two
done.
parts? You want to
Pardon?
consider 2 parts, like on the 13th, do a 4:30 to 5:30, and then take a break, and then hit with Mark?
To me, a meeting is a meeting. If I've got to be there and I got to hook up, I'd rather have one longer meeting than a shorter meeting the following. week.
And Alan, I would not assume that she's going to be at this meeting. I mean, we can ask, and she may want to just field questions and then have them go back. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Well, if you put her in touch with me,
Yeah.
maybe she and I could work out what is possible.
Okay, perfect. so I'm going to put on a tentative date for August 24th at 6 to have a remote meeting for now. You can pencil that in. And then and the committees, you know, you do what you need to do to schedule meetings to sort of, you know, get a handle on what you want to happen next, okay? Thank you, Joanne, for joining us, and Mark, and is still here. And Paul's participation. Were there any parking lot items, something that you wanted on the agenda coming up? For now, we got enough? Greg, you want to go over where we are on the goals before we adjourn?
I mean, we can, hold on, let me take a look at the agenda here.
We all set on?
Well, I mean, I think we're good for now. I mean, we're still right now in the gathering of the information from the ed subcommittee. And that will,
Okay.
So, you know, we're still in that phase. So not much has changed. Once we get that information, we can start running scenarios.
All right, you know, I like to keep things under 2 hours. Anyone want to make a motion?
So moved
To adjourn.
Second,
to adjourn.
Michelle, Len seconded.
yes.
Greg, Alan Genovese, yes.
Yes.
Jane Dutcher, yes.
Michelle Druso, yes.
Raina Daster, yes.
That's Sherry, yes.
Renee
Karen
Carey,
O'Neill, yes.
Steve Richter,
Mike
yes.
Martin, yes.
Tiffany, yes.
I think we got everybody.
Right.
David had left. So David had left, that's all. Oh, okay, thank you, everyone. Enjoy
Okay.
this heat wave we're having.
Yeah.
Take care. Have a good summer.
Have a good night.
I know.
Thank
Good
you.
summer.
Night.
Night.
I'm going to
Bye.
the Tiki Dock. Bye.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Good night.